Welcome to the Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Fit, the all-in-one AI-powered corporate wellness platform developed by Vantage Circle.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast, where we talk about all things related to employee health and well-being. In today's episode, we talk about the crucial topic of psychological safety at work. And for that matter, we have with us Ms. Ruthann, who is herself a psychological safety expert and has done numerous talks on mental health, workplace bullying, sexual harassment, diversity and inclusion, and so on. So, Ruthann, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Alif.
Thank you so much, Ruthann, and we're glad to have you with us on the show today. Would you like to tell us how you work?
Yeah, I am a cultural change strategist and principal consultant at Harmony in the Workplace. And it's both my business name and what I do. I love to work with organizations to help them get really clear on what organizational values they want to build into their teams, how they want to grow and scale their business or transform their business into something that resembles living out those values in the day-to-day culture, and really help them build those teams with intention, including my favorite topic, psychological safety.
That's great. So for our listeners that might not be familiar with the topic of psychological safety, what would you say it is actually?
Psychological safety, there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. So really, it's about a level of trust in an organization in taking interpersonal risk to express thoughts, opinions, ideas, to make mistakes and have near misses and report them without any fear of reprisal or blame or shaming, but for the simple purpose of learning, growing, improving efficiencies within an organization. And, there's 13 psychosocial factors that the Mental Health Commission of Canada came up with in 2012 in the international standard for psychological safety. And I'm certainly not going to rattle off all 13, but it's simple things, premises like civility and respect, clear leadership and expectations, really making sure that the right person is in the right role, psychological support for those that are struggling, maybe because of something that's happening in the workplace, or maybe they're struggling because of something that's happening in their personal life or their family life, or even, right now during this pandemic, we're in a mental health crisis. So it's employers really giving their employees the support they need to navigate through those systems of life. And it's really allowing people to bring their whole selves to work, to participate fully, and to really engage and help the business grow with its strategic objectives, while they're also feeding our human need for belonging and meaningful work.
Okay. So the emphasis on people in the workplace has become really more prevalent in recent years. And as more organizations focus on relationships team have with one another, so now the role of psychological safety is even more important, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's always been. But, if there's anything that this global pandemic crisis has done, is it's given every single person on the planet an opportunity to pause, to really determine what is important to them, what they value, how they want to work going forward. Sometimes they've been able to transition very well to working from home, and some of them really love that and they want to keep that up. Others just can't wait to get back to their teams and face to face, and they want to do that. And I think it's really important for employers to seek input from their employees. And again, this is nothing new. It's something that's always been wise leadership. But for today's workers, you may have heard of the Great Resignation. It's, some statistics say up to 79% of workers are really considering leaving or are actively looking for other roles that support them better. And because our globe has shrunk, because we're in a global workplace now and a gig economy and younger workers, millennials will make up 75% of the global workforce by 2025. And they are much less likely to put up with the toxic status quo. And they really want to work for organizations that support them and support the things that are important to them.
Right now, I'd say that it's more than just a trend. And I have seen that many of the top, companies in the world, they have also been assessing the psychological safety of their organizations in, order to determine how it impacts their team's output and also their work. So would you say psychological safety, or just a lack thereof, can play a part in the well-being of their employees as well?
Absolutely, it does, because there's one of the 13 factors is that psychological support and the psychological safety, again, in expressing ideas. So let's say that, we're talking about building a diverse team. We have different ethnicities, we have different genders, different ages, different backgrounds. We've put a lot of thought and attention into developing diversity on our teams, because the last thing we want is a bunch of people just like us that think just like us. We can't move forward with that. So if you've done that, but you don't have inclusion safety, you don't give people the freedom to actually participate fully and express their thoughts, opinions, and ideas freely, and, do that without any eye rolling, any body. Most of our language is body language, right? And when we're meeting online, it takes a lot of that off the table. But you can still tell, when someone thinks your idea is stupid or doesn't hold space for you, or they speak over you in meetings. It's really allowing every voice to be heard. And, it's really important for business owners to let those voices be heard and to really seek them out, because what I'm finding is a lot of times people that may be considered a minority within the workplace, they might not always feel safe to speak out. So wise employers are making sure that they get those opinions, because that next great idea, that next great solution to a problem that you're having in your organization might come from the least expected source. It doesn't mean that every single idea is going to be a winner or be adopted, but it does mean that people are heard. And when they're bought into the company vision, they are going to work really hard for you. They're going to be loyal, and they're going to be fully engaged and productive.
Yes, indeed. And basically, the power of psychological safety, lies in the ability to openly admit when we're making mistakes. And it also provides us the opportunities to improve on it, especially. So essentially, viewing failure as the opportunity to learn, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to fail forward. There's no point in failing over and over and over again. I hear from organizations that related to their violence and harassment prevention, they've got bullying going on in the workplace. They've got sexual harassment going on in the workplace, and they keep addressing the incidents without addressing the underlying issues, and just repeating the same patterns over and over and over again. And it's so costly.
Yes. And, while it may be uncomfortable to voice opinions or just ask questions to clarify an employee's concern, but the psychologically safe workplaces can, they actually foster more productivity. Because of that discomfort, it actually allows for growth by sharing different perspectives and shows other team members also that it's okay to speak up.
Absolutely. And, leadership, we hear about servant leadership, coaching leadership styles. That's the leadership of the future. That's the leadership of the 21st century, actually. Mm. And, what it does is it allows people to grow into their potential and to spread their wings and to be challenged. And when we involve them in that and we groom them to achieve their objectives in the workplace, all of those KPIs, we see the results there. There's less turnover. We're able to attract better quality candidates. We're positioning ourselves as employers of choice. And really, it's giving those organizations that get psychological safety right have a definite competitive advantage.
Yes, indeed. So, Ruthann, if you had to pen down, top 5 advantages of having a psychological safe workplace, what would you say those would be?
Top 5. Okay. Top 5 advantages of a psychologically safe workplace. You care about people. Yeah. You put people first. And that includes all people. How we do anything is how we do everything. If you're treating your customers really well and that's something that you're very intentional about, but you're not treating your employees well, your customers will know that. It will come out somehow, and maybe not in a public way, but they're going to see, feel, or experience that disengagement. So when you get psychological safety right, it permeates the whole organization and it comes through to the end user. We will see decreased turnover, as I mentioned. Employees will be engaged, loyal, and enthusiastic. They'll have opportunities to advance themselves and advance their careers. They'll feel like they're part of something bigger. And, there's a ripple effect to not only throughout the organization, but to our families, to our societies. When people are engaged, fulfilled, happy, and productive at work, we were designed to be productive and to work and to do work that is meaningful to us. And when people are engaged in that way, there's a ripple effect. They're going to go home and they're going to be kind to their family. They're not going to kick their dog or whatever that might look like. They're going to be more patient as they're, doing their commute. They're going to have more goodwill to extend to their neighbors and their society. It really is an obligation that employers have that has a bigger effect to society in general. And it doesn't have to be complicated. These psychosocial factors, they're not complicated things. You would think they would be common sense things, but common sense is not always that common. So it's really just being intentional about that. And sometimes they just don't know where to start.
That's 100% true. And
I don't know if that was 5. I'm hoping it was more than 5.
It was obviously more than 5. And I think you would advocate that psychological safety varies a lot, even in just one company.
It does, absolutely, because each company, even within teams. Now, when you're looking at a larger organization, it starts at the top. It really does start in the C-suite. You can't create any cultural change without having buy-in from the top. So if there are any business leaders listening to this today, resource your human resource department. If this is something that you want, give them the resources to succeed. Give them the resources to bring in outside help to help expedite the process. Give them the capacity within their job. Maybe hire an assistant to help facilitate this, because people and culture really is the most important thing in your organization. So, we can maybe have pockets of psychological safety within teams, but that team dynamic, it's so fragile. That amount of trust, that level of trust is fragile. And if someone, from outside that team comes in, or someone from that team leaves, or, there is no buy-in from the C-suite, they're not going to be able to sustain it. So it really is top down.
Yes, that's obviously something our leaders, they should look forward to doing. And just to, promote psychological safety in their workplaces, obviously a lot of leaders look for tips and advice. So what would you say, like how should employers, promote, what should they do to promote psychological safety in their workplaces?
Find out where they're at presently. Well, first of all, like I said, get really clear on what type of organizational culture you want to build.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time for a reevaluation of those organizational values and really make sure that that's really what you want to build. And I'm not talking about virtues like honesty and integrity. Those should be a given. Can we agree on that? I'm talking more about values, things that are important to you. So, speaking respectfully to one another. And I'm not just talking about having a respectful workplace policy. I'm talking about actually living it out in the day-to-day. And, maybe it's something like lifelong learning. So you really want to empower your teams and your leaders and your employees to live into their potential and do things that are important to them. You want to be intentional about checking in with them and seeing where they're at. You want to build relationships. And if there's been an environment where people are not feeling psychologically safe, they might be a little trepidatious at first because it might feel disingenuine to them. They might not feel like, you're authentic. So really just communication is everything. Let them know. Even if an employer has messed up or an HR professional has messed up, because we, as HR, we get this wrong all the time, apologize. Have that authenticity to be humble and say, hey, we screwed up or we've gotten this wrong, but we realize now that it's so important, not only to organizational success, but it's important to the individual fulfillment and success of our employees. And we want to make some changes and get it right. And then identify ambassadors or champions within the organization that are all in and that want to help you grow that. And then just be very intentional. Get a benchmark about where you are. You can take the 13 psychosocial factors. I'm going to send that document to you. Again, it's through the Mental Health Commission of Canada. It's not anything I've made up, but I'm going to share it with your listeners. And really get, formulate just a handful of questions around those factors. Find out where people are. So you figure out where you're going, you figure out where you are, and then you just work on benchmarks. I use a results-based management system with benchmarks along the way to really help facilitate that. It doesn't happen overnight. It is a process to shift any culture. It's a process to build anything worthwhile. Would you agree? So yeah, it's a process. And sometimes, bringing in outside help is a great way to expedite that process.
Yes. So the key takeaway is to ensure people, feel safe both asking and answering questions, and just providing, the employers providing their employees the freedom to fail. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And be very clear. Like I said, that communication piece is key. Be very clear about what expectations are. Leaders need to be patient and be open for questions and clarifying questions. People need to be safe to seek clarification. Really, that communication piece is absolutely key. Again, allow people, like just exactly what you said, allow them the ability to fail forward for the simple purpose of learning and improving efficiencies, correcting mistakes so that they don't happen again. And it's not about blame or shame or fear or reprisal. It's simply about learning and growing and becoming better individually and collectively.
Yes, that is 100% true and is absolutely key in terms of tackling psychological safety at work, both collectively and individually, as you mentioned. Now, coming to the end of our podcast, Ruthann, would you like to share some tips or advice for our listeners?
Yeah, you know what? Do what you can from where you are with what you have. Leaders are burned out too. Leaders are experiencing this pandemic, and business owners have extra stress. HR people are some of the most stressed workforce right now. I would say, it kind of goes healthcare workers, HR, teachers, they're all, really under a lot of pressure and stress right now in this pandemic. So be kind to yourself first. Be kind to each other. Just give people room and space to be supportive. Doesn't mean that you need to try to fix them or solve all their problems. Sometimes people just want to be heard. And I think that right now in this accelerated environment of disruption, that's the best thing we can do for each other as human beings. And another gift I have for your audience is the top 3 considerations when building effective teams. I'll send that link to you, Alif, and they are welcome to download that if that's helpful. And absolutely reach out to me anytime. My website is harmonyintheworkplace.com. My email is rweeks@harmonytraining.ca, and I'm here to support you.
Thank you so much, Ruthann. I'm sure that would be really helpful for our listeners, and we really appreciate you being a part of our podcast and sharing so many valuable insights on psychological safety. Thank you, and have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.